Negotiation and conflict are often talked about in the same contexts. Both are seen as difficult interpersonal situations to navigate, which can be true, but a negotiation situation and a conflict situation differ in fundamental ways. First, negotiations are a process where two people come together in order to work towards something that they could not have worked out on their own. They might have differing opinions or different preferences, or at least they think they do. Through a negotiation, you can engage in a process to develop alternatives or develop ideas that you or both parties can agree on, hopefully. With a negotiation, the idea is actually to improve the situation. Conflicting goals may be present and make for difficult conversations, but overall, the goal is to jointly come to an agreement. Of course, sometimes the solution in a negotiation is to walk away and not come to an agreement. For that reason, the process is even more important, because you never know if you might end up starting this conversation again in the future or need to negotiate with this person again in the future. A negotiation can also be a learning process for yourself, to learn what you do and don't want and refine your own preferences. Even if you don't come to an agreement, you can leave a negotiation feeling more informed and confident for the next negotiation. When it comes to types of negotiation, there are two major categories. The first is win-lose or distributive negotiations, and the second is win-win or integrative negotiations. For a distributive negotiation, the goal is to try to get as much as we can for ourselves out of the negotiation. Here we are looking to do battle and negotiate aggressively. So in negotiations, we talk a lot about pie. The idea then with a distributive negotiation is that we're trying to get as much of the pie as we can. The motivation being that we are trying to win, even if it means the other party must lose somehow. One of the things that creates this competitive atmosphere is the focus on positions instead of interests. So positions are surface statements that indicate where a person stands and rarely provides insights into motivations, values, incentives. With position statements, you're telling your negotiation partner, this is where I stand, take it or leave it. Now, this can work for one-off negotiations, like at a bar or a bazaar, where you might not interact with this person again, and negotiating aggressively is actually the only way to get what you want. But the relationship with your negotiation partner, in this case, is then not a high priority. So we're not investing time in sharing our motivations or interests, and we're also not asking our negotiation partners about theirs either. Now, on the other side, we have integrative negotiations. Here we see many differences to a distributive negotiation. For example, our goal in an integrative negotiation is to expand the pie. So that is to create even more opportunity out of the negotiation. So the focus is on co-creating a solution or coming up with creative ideas where both parties are happy with the outcome. The motivation here is to work towards a win-win in a way that I get a deal that's perfect for me by sharing my interests and my preferences with you, and you sharing your interests and preferences with me. Now, we can only do that if information sharing is high, and the priorities on either side of the table are openly discussed in order to find a mutually beneficial deal. Now, given the greater time investment, sharing of information, motivation for a win-win solution, through that process, we build trust, foster cooperation, and build a foundation for a positive relationship in the future. So this strategy is then appropriate when you are negotiating with a supervisor or a client. Now, switching from negotiation to conflict, the difference with conflict then is that we are starting from a point where there is already a disagreement or an argument. We already know we're standing on opposite sides of some topic, and this requires us to engage in a much more effortful process because this is difficult. Conflict can further be separated into two categories: task conflict and relationship conflict. Task conflict often involves concrete issues around work assignments and how to divide up resources. It can be related to how the work is being done, so the policies and procedures. The task conflict can be disruptive, but it can also be helpful to improve these processes when the conflict is handled well. Engaging in a collaborative problem solving helps to keep the task conflict constructive. Then there's relationship conflict, and that originates from differences in personality, style, values, preferences. And while diversity of opinions and perspectives is important, it can also bring about some of this relationship conflict. So In order to manage this, we need to engage in a good deal of perspective taking and employ empathy through this conflict. So, taken together, while negotiation and conflict have some overlapping themes, it's important to keep in mind that conflict doesn't have to exist for there to be an opportunity to negotiate. We can use negotiations anytime as a tool when we wish to improve something for ourselves or for others.